welcome everyone to this From Page to Screen 2021 Q&A for Ammonite. And we're delighted to have Gemma Jones, who plays Molly Anning, Mary Anning's mother, in the film. Gemma Jones, a leading actor for over 5 decades, is known for many memorable performances. I can only list a few of your films. All the Bridget Jones films, Sense and Sensibility, Rocketman, the Harry Potter films, and then there are numerous television roles. Most recently, the excellent series Unforgotten and Gentleman Jack. And in 2015, Gemma won a BAFTA for her performance as Mary in Marvellous. So welcome, Gemma.
Thank you very much.
And thank you so much for doing this. I'm only sorry we're not doing it in front of a live audience, because I know they'll all be clapping and cheering with me to say it's a wonderful film, and it really is very impressive. So tell me, to kick off, how did you get involved in Francis Lee's Ammonite?
Well, I had been in his first film, God's Own Country, which was a challenge in many ways. And so I was very flattered when he contacted me again with another very different film, and said, yes, please.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so you worked with Francis on his first film,
yes,
his debut film, God's Own Country, and
yes.
then you came to this, and I'd like to talk about God's Own Country in a minute, but obviously this is a different scale of film and involved many other challenges. And I was interested when I watched the Q&A that Francis did for BAFTA, that very quickly I noticed Kate Winslet talked about this way that he has of working, which is lots of preparation, and then he likes, as she said, to feel the real dirt in her hands and to feel the real cold. And I mean, is it a very different way of working with Francis?
Not hugely, except his concentration is extraordinary. I have to say I didn't do quite as much research as Kate. I didn't climb rocks or dig in the sand, or I didn't have to do anything too cold or grubby. But I did a lot of reading around it. And of course, it was fascinating that she was a real person, Mary Anning. And I'd worked with Kate before on Sense and Sensibility. So that was a lovely reunion. And Francis is very trusting. So you always have a wonderful environment to work in. I mean, all the sets were meticulously researched. And so once you get into a set, I mean, I felt completely at home and in my corset and my costume. And so he surrounds you with support. And then not exactly lets you get on with it, but yes, he is hugely trusting, and he watches very, very carefully. So I think if there was anything he wasn't happy with, he'd intrude, but otherwise he sort of gives you your head, which is very flattering. Yeah.
And in terms of that, is it, he talks about it wanting small casts, small sets, and he creates a very concentrated environment to work in.
Yes, absolutely he does. Yes, yes.
And I mean, what I'm struck by the film, and both the films, is this extraordinary way he seems to have a strong hand in everything, the sounds of nature, the costumes, the authenticity of things. He talks a lot about this. He doesn't like the fakery of films.
Right. No, he is very involved in all departments. Yes, and very meticulous. Knows exactly what he wants. Yes.
And Molly Anning is a true character.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, extraordinary woman, lost many children, had a very, very hard life, not educated, but intuitively I like to think a sort of an intelligent woman, but tough. Yes, yes.
And you were able to research a bit about her life?
Yes, yes, I was, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And of course we were filming in Lyme Regis, which now is very sort of gentrified and prettified, but I was walking in her shoes, which was rather extraordinary. Yes.
And how shall I put it? With this part, and also your part in God's Own Country, you often say little but speak volumes.
Right, right.
And
I quite like that about film. Yes.
Yeah. And how does that appear in a script when you first see it?
Well, some authors write quite a lot of stage directions, and France's script had quite a lot of stage direction. So the narrative is very clear, and as you say, Mary doesn't have a huge amount to say. I mean, but she observes a lot. Yes.
And is that ever a kind of a frustration as an actor, or do you said you quite liked it?
No, I quite like that, because there's many things you can do without vocalizing, and I'm always aware, when the camera is on me. I quite like that challenge, because the camera can see inside your head without you having to say anything.
And do you think it makes a difference that Francis was an actor? He talks a lot about having respect for the craft of the actor. Do you think that makes a difference?
I think it makes a huge difference. He absolutely understands the process. And of course, different actors work different ways. And he's very sympathetic if he's very aware if you need a little more preparation time or concentration. He's absolutely wants everybody on the set to be focused in. So if anybody, crunches a Mars bar or slams a door or disturbs his concentration, you certainly hear about it.
Oh, really? It's a bit like I read that Tarantino makes people put their mobile phones in a box and lock them away, just in case a phone should ring on the set. Yes. And so with God's Own Country, how did you get involved in that film? Because that was his debut film.
Yes. I don't know whether it came through a casting director or directly from Francis knowing my work. I don't know, but we had he sent me a script, which I thought was beautiful. And then we met and had a chat, and I just intuitively thought, I like this chap, I'd like to work with him. And so he offered me the role. Yeah.
I'm going to jump to one of the students actually asked me about to ask a question like that, and they said, was there ever any hesitation about working on God's Own Country, with Francis being a relative unknown at the time and it being his debut feature?
No, I didn't query that he might not be up to par. He had wonderful enthusiasm, and I liked the way he talked. And I like working with, in fact, I'm about to do a job now with a first-time director. I like that because you're all in it together and creating together. And
that's impressive.
He always gets a good team around him. So the technicalities of maybe not being very familiar with camera moves, or that you learn on the job, which is quite exciting. Yeah.
And how did that inform itself when you returned to your sort of second film with Francis? Did you feel that was enriched that relationship that you had.
Yes, hugely. And I think he did learn a huge amount on God's Own Country. So he came to Ammonite with much more technical knowledge, I guess. And and Kate, of course, is hugely knowledgeable, because I worked with her when she was just starting out, but now she's quite a powerful force. Very knowledgeable about film. And I've done a lot of film, but I wouldn't like to take an exam. A lot of my work is intuitive, and I'm not so familiar with the technicalities of the work. But
and so that, you know, because you played Kate's mother, Mrs. Dashwood.
Yes.
And you say that was when she was starting out, and
Yes.
it must have been extraordinary to be on a set with someone some years later, now an Oscar winner and everything.
It was quite different, yes.
And
Sense and Sensibility was a lovely, lovely job. And it was on again recently, and I looked at it and thought, gosh, that was a really beautiful film. And of course, Ang Lee, who seemed like such an unlikely choice of director, was inspired choice, because he had a very different eye view on it. And I'd been working for 2 or 3 weeks before I realized that he did actually speak English, because he was very inscrutable. He didn't say very much. And recently I read an interview with him and said he was so frightened because it was his first English language film. So all of us were on tenterhooks, but it was a lovely, very, very, very happy job.
Yes, and I was having a look at it the other day, and it's, as you say, it's a wonderful film, and Kate is hugely youthful and gushing and enthusiastic, and and in Ammonite she is rooted and sort of slow. And what did it feel like to have that? Did you notice the way her acting has grown? And
absolutely, I did. Yes, and she knows exactly what she wants to do in a scene. I mean, we all improvise together very freely, and you know, and her emotions are always very near the surface, which I love. No, I loved working with her. Yeah. But I wouldn't like to get on the wrong side of her.
And you use the word improvising. Is that something Frances encourages on a set?
Yes, I think it is, yes.
So you have a script, but you might move.
We wouldn't move from the script, but in terms of the mood of the scene, or
yes,
he leaves you very free. Yes.
Okay, I'm going to pass on to some of these questions that I've been given from the students. Everything, so there's some good ones here. So first one is, what preparation did you do to get into character for Ammonite?
Well, I went down to Lyme Regis a few days before we started and familiarized myself with the atmosphere of the town and the sea, and walked along the Cobb and pretended to be Meryl Streep, and went to the little, they've got a lovely, lovely museum in Lyme Regis. So on that level, I did research, but it was mostly just drinking in the atmosphere of this little seaside port. And there is a certain amount of information about Mary Annie. So I'd read a couple of books and looked at photographs and just tried to steep myself in the atmosphere of it, really.
Is it true, looking on your IMDb bio, that you were considered for the French Lieutenant's Woman? Is that true?
It is true, yes. It was, who was the director then?
I should know.
No, he didn't do it eventually. Fred Zinnemann.
Yes.
Fred Zinnemann was very behind my doing it, and I did a screen test, I remember, and but I didn't have enough of a profile. Well, for whatever reason, but yes, I almost did.
So you could have been walking that cob.
Yes.
Oh, fantastic. It's an interesting film to watch now because the modern section of it is, of course, now its own period.
Right.
So,
yes.
it feels quite dated because it's very it was 70 something, wasn't it?
That's right. Yes.
It's interesting. So yes, another question was, did you create a larger backstory for your character in order to get into the character for Ammonite? She's lost many children, of course, but did you flesh out her earlier life and her relationships? Did you?
Yes, privately I created backstory, and the nub of it was the loss of the children. I'm a mother myself, so but to lose all those children just must have affected her. What she might have been like before she lost the children, and then this grief corroded her, and she became very tough in order to survive, I guess.
And this is an interesting one, which is Bridget Jones films have a large queer fan base, and you more recently been in Rocketman, Francis Films and Gentleman Jack, all exploring queer stories and characters. Is this a conscious decision?
No, it absolutely isn't. It's just sort of turned out that way. Yes.
Okay. Which leads on to another question, which is, what makes you agree to take on a certain role?
Just if I've had any success in my career, it is that I have been able to say no to things. So my success has been that I've mostly done things that I wanted to do. On rare occasions, when I haven't been happy in something, it's because I've made the wrong choice, because I wanted to work around the school holidays, or because they were paying me a lot of money. But my happiest assignments have been nothing to do with my salary, or have just been an instinct that I understood the character. So I was confident that I would find a way to project that.
And do you think that's why you still feel open enough to go with first-time directors?
Yes. No, I like that adventure of creating something fresh. Yes.
That's good. Well, this is a good one to lead on to, which is, you've had an incredibly successful and long-running career. How do you keep momentum and passion for your craft?
Oh, that's interesting. This current situation where I haven't been working for a long time has been quite interesting, because of course I have had patches where I've been out of work, and that's always very frustrating, and not knowing quite what's coming up next. And because this has been a very long lull, I was sort of getting used to not working. And one of the reasons why I'm doing this next job is because I felt I must keep working before I get frightened to work, because it's kind of easy not to work. And there's always a challenge to working, which is stimulating, but it can be stressful. So I'm a sucker for punishment, I guess. But I certainly, my father was an actor who kept working until he was in his 90s, and I'm hoping to emulate him.
Excellent. And so tell us about, because I looked on your credits, and you've got some up and coming projects which are now in post-production. Were the Terence Davis Benediction, was that filmed during the pandemic?
No, that was before.
Yes.
So it was,
and the other one is Alice, is it?
Finding Alice has been done, yes.
No, there was another one that I saw you had coming up, I think. Well, they're both before the
yes. Yes.
And tell us about the Terence Davis. That looks interesting.
It was interesting. I didn't have very much to do, but a fascinating subject about Siegfried Sassoon. And I was very interested to work with Terence. I only had about 2 or 3 days work, but I haven't seen that either. So I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And so what can we ask what you're
About to do?
Yes.
It's a film which is written and directed by Frances O'Connor, who's an actress,
Yeah.
an Australian actress. And we worked together in the theatre. She played Maggie the cat in Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. This is a long time ago now, 15 years ago, maybe. So it's about Emily Bronte, and it's all to be shot in Yorkshire. So I go up to Yorkshire next week. So I wanted to support Frances in her lovely script, and she's directing as well. So that'll be an adventure.
And will that be in Haworth or?
Not actually in Haworth, but in pretend Haworth, as if it were Haworth, yes.
And are you?
I went to Haworth for the first time while I was doing God's Own Country a couple of years ago, which was very touching. I'd never been before.
And are you part of the Bronte family, or?
I play the aunt who moved into the house after the mother died and virtually brought up the children and lived there all her adult life. She was a spinster.
Mm-hmm.
It's her sister who died.
Yes. Lovely. And so a couple more student questions, if you don't mind. What are the differences in acting for film and television?
Essentially, there's no difference, I don't think. It's a question of scale, but the nub of it is that you have to be truthful, and you notch it up for the theatre, but I still start from the same place, which is a core of my own truth. And film, as I said before, can almost reach into your brain, the camera. But for me, it's basically the same.
Mm-hmm. And I you use that expression, notch it up for the theatre. Is it? It's just the.
Well, literally, technically, you have to be heard from the gods, and
Yes.
so and I like that as well. I like doing theatre.
Yes.
Yes.
What do you look for in a director, and how do you find they're able to capture your best performance?
That's also a very personal thing. Depends whether I fancy him or not, essentially. Sometimes, if I like the personality. So I'm not blinded by science. If I don't like the personality, they can be, extraordinarily clever, and that wouldn't be my first choice.
Is it too impolite a word to say, is there a flirtation between a director and actor?
Not so much a flirtation, but there has to be a trust.
Yes.
Which can be very personal. You have to trust your director, and you have to have a sense that the director trusts you, because you have to expose yourself, literally sometimes, which I quite enjoy.
But they're looking for something that they want from your performance, and presumably you guard against being manipulated by a director.
And of course, I can't be completely objective about my own work. So sometimes I think, I wonder why they cast me. So they see something that I don't necessarily see. So I guess sometimes a director will have seen my work and thought that would be useful to him. But sometimes it's a more personal thing, how you get on as people.
And just going back to some of the wonderful films you've done, like the Bridget Jones films, which are fantastic, and your character is amazing. Comedy, is that more of a challenge, more fun, more difficult?
It's certainly more fun, and for some reason I wish I'd done more comedy, which I enjoyed doing enormously. And the Bridget Jones was lovely because it was light-hearted, and I seem to have slightly not got stuck, but latterly I seem to have played very dour characters and not quite so much frivolity, and the frivolity is lovely. Michel Guiche was a casting director who cast me in Bridget Jones, and I'm forever grateful because, yeah.
Yes, there's not many, you don't smile much in God's Own Country or in Ammonite.
Absolutely not. But sometimes when parts are like that, the offstage life is quite frivolous to counteract. You know, when the camera's off, there's sometimes a lot of fun and humor to counteract the dourness of the role. Yes.
And does Francis allow that on a set, or does he like it to be the lid to stay on it, as it were?
No, he's quite easy as long as, you know, the concentration is there when the camera rolls. Yes.
Right, right.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Kate talked about how the fact that she doesn't believe in walking around permanently in her character, and
Right.
she can switch on, switch off.
Yeah, yeah.
And also thinking about Sense and Sensibility, which is period, and of course Ammonite is period as well. Do you think our attitude to period films has changed? You know, we're less, you know, obviously you compare those two films, we're much less chocolate boxy about period films. Do you think our attitude has changed in how we make these films?
Yes, I think it has, but I have to be careful because I find I'm a bit of a slob. If people don't speak what I call standard English, I get very irritated. But who's to say that in the 18th century, people would have spoken standard English? They probably would have spoken with rural accents. Sometimes when I see young actors not what I call speaking properly, I get a bit schoolmarmish.
Because of course Kate worked very hard to learn her Dorset accent.
Yes, yes.
Did you also have to?
Yes, yes. We had a very nice voice coach who helped us. Yes.
Because it's
when I worked with Renee Zellweger on Bridget Jones's Diary, she brilliantly got this accent, which is slightly, what's the word, street cred, anyway. And I'd been working with her for about a month before I heard her on her phone talking to a friend in her natural Texan accent. And I was completely taken aback because she used to keep the accent all the time. You never heard her talk in her own Texan accent.
Let me see if there's, oh yes. 2 more questions here from students. What has been your favorite role?
Oh gosh, that's hard. Do you know, as you asked me that, it's theatre roles that immediately come to my mind. But for film, I hugely enjoyed, which I thrillingly got the BAFTA for, Marvellous, because that was a marvelous script. It was a really, really lovely script. And that was another very happy job. I liked playing that. But I guess Bridget Jones was great fun. I loved doing that. Yes.
She was quite a character.
Yes,
Did you draw from anyone for that character?
Not specifically, no. Jim Broadbent and I had worked together in the theatre, so we knew each other, which was nice. So that was a nice partnership. Yeah.
And last one from the students is, what advice would you have for up and coming actors?
Oh gosh. I've been thinking about up and coming actors now in this particular current where there's very little work, which is very frightening because when you're at drama school, you do so many things, you play different roles and you're busy all the time. And then suddenly to have to come out into the profession this arid profession at the moment must be really, really frightening.
Yes.
And how you hang on to your own integrity. Your original question was, what advice would I give to young actors? I really don't know, but if you really want to do it, somehow you stick with it. And I've been incredibly lucky. You know, I've had a very happy professional life and had some wonderful roles, but I wouldn't like to be starting again now.
Well, Gemma, that was fascinating, and thank you very much.
That's
And as I say, I think it's a wonderful film, Ammonite, and I look forward to you to seeing it. And I hope that in the future at one of our festivals, when you will come and visit us in Dorset, and from one of the many films that I'm sure you'll be doing. Thank you so much for taking part in this Q&A.
Well, thank you for having me.